So today's story poses a question, and that would be, how far would a parent go in order to protect their child? Before we move forward though, I do want to mention that everything I say in this video is all just alleged because it's an ongoing case. But for this one, we've got to head over to Northeast Spokane, which is located in Washington in the United States of America. And in the days leading up to the 22nd of October 2021, residents of East Everett Avenue had noticed that an abandoned Honda car had been parked on the road. This wasn't too a surprise though, as people in the area seen abandoned cars on the street all the time, believe it or not. But when Dane Massey's dogs kept running over to this specific car, Dane said something was completely different about it. What was different, you might be asking yourself? Well, listen to what Dane explained when he approached. It smelled like death. And why did it smell like death? Well, that's because there was a body in the trunk. After police were called to the area, the body was eventually identified to be that of 19-year-old Andrew Sorenson. He'd been pronounced missing near enough 1 year prior on the 1st of November 2020. He was found with his wrists and ankles bound together, mouth taped shut, and his clothes were studded with puncture wounds, suggesting he'd been stabbed multiple times. Police would later come out to say the car had been driven to Northeast Spokane earlier in October of 2021 by a third party who isn't believed to have known there was a dead body inside the trunk. Prior to the car being found though, it was said that it had been sat in a remote area of North Spokane County for around 11 months. But who exactly did this to Andrew? The investigation was on. Officers responding to the 911 call on the day the body was found figured out the car had been registered to a woman by the name of Brenda Cross. Police would go on to phone her, but the phone wasn't accepting calls. They would try and make further contact again, but they couldn't get hold of her, so they would arrive at her home address. When they knocked the door, Brenda's fiance, 60-year-old John Eisenmen, answered the door. After a brief chat, he told them the car had been stolen about a year prior. But a few days later, Brenda was interviewed where she told them her underage daughter had been sex trafficked in Seattle in October of 2020 by her boyfriend, none other than Andrew Sorenson. She continued, once they figured out what had happened, they drove to Seattle and rescued their daughter that very same month. But even at this point, no one had been arrested or charged in relation to Andrew's murder, and although there were more than likely some key suspects, it wouldn't be until a tip-off which really made this investigation move fast. You see, a few days after they had both been interviewed, a neighbour called Crime Check, I'm guessing this is an anonymous tip-off line, saying that John had disclosed killing someone to them and putting the body into the trunk of a car. According to reports, the details the neighbour knew in regards to how Andrew had been killed were very specific. Only someone who knew what had happened would know these kind of details. From here, John would go on to be arrested for the killing. He spoke to police and he would actually confess to what he had done. After his arrest, John told police he learned his teenage daughter had been sold to a sex trafficking ring by Andrew in the Seattle area in October of 2020, which we've already been over. He said he was able to eventually rescue her and bring her back home after finding out the revelation. From here, John said that he obtained information about Andrew's whereabouts, which was in a trailer park in Airway Heights, Washington in November of 2020. John would continue that he abducted Andrew by tying him up and placed him in the trunk of a car. He then killed Andrew by striking him on the head with a cinder block and then stabbed him repeatedly. After the killing, John ditched the car in North Spokane County, where it remained until last October. Of course, it was then moved and the body was found. But in the most recent updates, John has been charged with first-degree murder, and his bail currently sits at $1 million. Again though, I do want to say that this whole account John has gave is all just alleged and isn't the full facts of the case. We'll obviously know more as the court hearings come around. But going back to my first question, and this is something I want to ask you, the viewers. Let's give a hypothetical situation in where this did go down. Is a situation like this justified? Should a man be jailed if he killed someone who sold his underage daughter into sex trafficking? Or do you think that the person should allow the police to do that investigation, make their arrests, and eventually send that person to jail? Again, I want to know what you lot think. Let me know down in the comment section below. But give the video a like for more crime related content like this, and make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't. It's been me, Ape Huncho, and I'll see you in the next one.